Hello, everybody. Here we are with Beyond the Briefcase, another opportunity for you to listen to more information from these fabulous people that we've got with us today. I am Sherry Knight, and I have Dimension 11. And with that, I think in terms of what can go wrong in life. Sometimes everything, fortunately, not often, but the key thing is when things go sideways, that's when we get to make those pivots. That's when we get to do things a little bit differently. So I'm going to tell you more about that later. But right now I want to introduce my co-host, who is Barbara Ellison. And Barbara has Wellness Playroom. Welcome, Barbara.
Well, hi, everybody. Yeah, and welcome to the show. This is going to be such a fun conversation just around what we do, how we do it, why we do it. And I'm a transformational life trainer, founder of Wellness Playroom. And I'm so excited to be here, and we're going to be telling our stories. And so, yeah, welcome to the show, everybody.
Oh, thank you, Barbara. You bet. We all have stories to tell, all those things that made a difference in our lives. It was one morning when I woke up and looked around the room and thought, what city am I in? You know, am I in Helsinki? Am I in Montreal? Am I in a place in Florida? Where am I? And I couldn't think about it. I looked around and I thought, okay, maybe what hotel am I in? Beautiful brick that was painted white on the wall, nice, very calming flowers on the wallpaper, beautiful bed. I'm going, okay, no, that's not working either. So it took about 5 minutes, me looking out the window going, I'm on the ground floor, obviously, because there's a tree outside. So maybe I'm on the second floor. And then I realized it. I was in my own bed, in my own bedroom, in my own house. I thought, kid, you've got a problem. We've got to make some adjustments here. That was a really important moment for me. We've all had them. That made us think about how are we going to do things differently. So I want to introduce Howard. Howie, you have been amazing when we have been chatting back and forth over the last few weeks, etc. Howie helps entrepreneurs like you, like me, everybody, in terms of taking that different look at business. Howie, I'm going to turn things over to you now, and you can introduce your guests.
Oh, thanks, Sherry, and thanks, Barbara, for the opportunity to have this chat. It's always fun to talk about the background and how people got started. Everybody, you're right. Everybody's got a story that's really fascinating when you kind of dig in and lean in a little bit and want to know a little bit more. I'd like to introduce my first guest, Angel Mary. Angel Mary is a good friend of mine. She lives, actually, the three of us, Angel Mary, Michael, and I, we live within a couple of miles of each other anyway. And we've seen each other at Chamber of Commerce events and all kinds of stuff. So, and we try to do some stuff socially too. So it's a lot of fun. So Angel Mary, tell us a little about yourself.
Thank you so much, Howie, Sherry, and Barbara, for having me on the show. I'm really excited to be here and share with all of you about my journey. A little bit about myself. I am the founder of Star Trek Investments, a leadership development company and business strategy company. And I also just recently started the Fellowship of Global Women Leaders, which is a supportive, specifically for women, leadership development group. And I'm just super excited to be here.
Welcome.
Yes, and Michael, what's going on in your world today?
Same here. Thank you, Barbara, and thank you, Sherry and Howie, for including us here. We're also Toastmasters, Howie, Angel, yourself, and I, and I'll be talking about my Toastmasters journey shortly, but I am the founder and owner of Michael Esposito, Inc., which is a coaching business / keynoting business. So I'm a keynoter, professional speaker, and I also do workshops to help leaders like everybody watching and listening right now to be able to find their voice, communicate their message, lead their team, and implement solutions in their organizations. And I also do one-to-one coaching in terms of that. I'm also just launching a mastermind community for entrepreneurs come July, and you'll be seeing people like Angel and Howie in the room as guests and maybe as guest speakers as well. And this is a community to support all the entrepreneurs who are going through the journey together.
Good. Thanks, Michael and Angel, for sharing that insightful information of how people got started. For me, it was also one of those crazy things. I've never woken up in my own room and thought, where am I? Yet. Anyway, so maybe that'll come someday soon. You never know.
There's hope.
Yeah, for sure. It's a great story too. So my journey to where, first of all, I help people with their finances. I'm a financial advisor. We provide all kinds of help in lots of different areas. But how I got started in this 20 years ago was one of those epiphany moments that I had another business at the time, and it wasn't doing great. It was doing okay, I guess, but I was really looking for something else to do. And through a couple of conversations, I realized that my finances were a mess, and the people who were guiding me, not to make my finances a mess, but who allegedly were trying to help me, were actually not doing so well anyway. So I learned about how finances are supposed to work, what you're supposed to do with your money, what you're not supposed to do with your money. And then that became that epiphany moment to say, aha, I'm looking for something else to do. This I can do because I've got a story and I can share it. And certainly now I help hundreds of clients all over the country to help them either get out of a mess that they're in, or hopefully we catch them before they're in the mess, and then we can move forward so they can all live happily ever after.
Makes total sense. So this whole element here is about the things that have happened to us that have made us make some adjustments in our lives. And so Howie, I'm going to let you take this forward with Angel and Michael, and we'll butt in too, Barbara and Sherry will, just to share the things that help us, which hopefully will help others. Over to you, Howie.
All right. So Angel, I know a little of your background before you are doing what you're doing now, which is really an awesome thing, helping women, move forward entrepreneurial wise. What did you do a little bit before that?
I was working in various sectors. I started out in government, moved into finance. Eventually, I jumped around until I landed in healthcare, and I fast-tracked my way up from entry level into the C-suite within 5 years. And this was a very challenging thing for me to do at the time. I was very motivated because I was home with the kids as a stay-at-home mom for 7 years. And during that period, I tried a lot of different things to see where my skill set was. And when I moved into healthcare, that's where I saw an alignment for myself, in that I felt like at least I knew for myself I was helping somebody at the end of the road. Someone's coming in sick, they're going to be getting better. So that was an alignment piece for me that really helped me see how important having a principled value within yourself aligning with whatever you're doing is. And that actually led me into my career right now in my own entrepreneurial journey, because along the way, not only did I rise as a leader and have to get a lot of training for that, but I saw a lot of individuals who got no training for leadership. We've all seen managers working out there who make really miserable time for their employees happen because they just weren't trained in knowing how to effectively communicate. Therefore, one of the reasons why I stepped out into this own world of having my own company is because I realized how important it is for us to communicate with each other, especially since COVID passed. A lot of our social skills have really dwindled, and we all know what we've heard about the return to work mandates. People are grumbling. There's a lot of disengagement. And so stepping into this world, just like Howie is helping people gather their finances, I'm really helping people recognize the leadership that they have within themselves to step forward and move up.
Awesome. Well, we're going to hear, looking forward to hearing some stories about some successes that you've had also. So, Michael, tell us a little about your background of where you started before Michael Esposito Inc. and the great things that you're doing now.
It's been quite a journey. I'm wearing a shirt today that says, you can't see it right away, but it says, grow through what you go through. And I think it really speaks to the conversation we're having today. So back in 2000, I want to say 17 or 16, I think it was, I was fired for the last time. My my wife was pregnant, and we already had a 1-year-old, and the world was crashing down on me. I was fired, and I had to figure things out. So this was a rude awakening. And what I ended up doing was I hid it. I hid it from everybody other than my wife. I needed to share that with her. And so in that time of hiding it, I realized something needs to change. So I love this question, because that's when I really realized. I said, look, I got all these highs and lows of, being a high producer and then crashing and burning. Something needs to change. And it's not them, it's me. something needs to change within me. And so that's when I reached out to Tony Robbins and learned more about his programs. And I couldn't afford the coaching at the time. So what I did was I purchased their CDs, and I purchased the entire library, $500, put it on a credit card. And what I would do is I would make believe I was going to work, and I would go to a hotel and listen to his tapes, his audio, and do the workbook. So it's as if I went through his seminars for like a good 3-4 weeks straight, 9 to 5. I was in Tony Robbins seminars working on myself. And I was doing that because my mother-in-law was watching our 1-year-old, and I didn't want her to know quite yet. It took me a long time actually to actually share all of this. But that was the moment, was when I got fired and when I started going to the hotel and working on myself, when I realized that this shift in me is not only me that needs this, it's everyone. And that's when, I joined Toastmasters. That's when I got my own coach. That's when I started working on personal development and really diving in head first and not looking at it as a just simple fix of like 90-day fix, but really as a lifelong journey. And that's where Michael Esposito Inc. kind of sprouted from. I wasn't sure yet because I went down the insurance path first. But really, Michael Esposito Inc. sprouted from the seed of, I need to fix myself, and there's others out there who need the same message and need the same support and are going through something that's probably similar to my experience and can learn from my experience, and I can help.
Yeah, thanks, Michael, for that vulnerability and sharing that kind of story. Not everybody has maybe the opportunity to spend 3 or 4 weeks in a hotel listening to Tony Robbins 8 hours a day. I mean, it is a routine and something that really takes a lot of stick-to-itiveness. And I'm going to guess, you tell me, somewhere along the line in those weeks, you said, I don't know, am I learning anything? Is this going to help me? And what do I do next? Did any of that come up for you?
Sure. Yeah. And I think what you're talking about is self-discipline, which I think as entrepreneurs is one of the most important qualities that we all have. Yeah. Is I didn't get fired because I lacked self-discipline. I got fired because I lacked information. I lacked desire or passion for the job. And so the discipline has always been built in there. It's just, do I have the passion to push forward? And with what you're asking here, yeah, I had the passion to change. I had a desire to change. I had a reason why to change. But back to your question of, was it challenging? Yeah, every day was a challenge. I was working, I was living on unemployment for those couple of weeks, right? And trying to find a job at the same time of trying to develop myself and trying to work through a lot of barriers. This story is 7 years old. So it took me from that point to today. So this is, and I'm still working through challenges, as many of us are. So realizing that, yeah, those challenges, those days that you're talking about where I'm looking at it going, what the heck is going on? And how am I going to make the next day? Those are still happening today. But that's where we go into a growth mindset of, this isn't happening to me, this is happening for me. And how can I learn from this experience? And how can I use it to move forward?
That's a great mindset. Things don't happen to you, they happen for you. I mean, talk about a positive way of looking at your life and moving forward. And I think some of the ways we get out of that sort of funk, or not the what it is, action, is taking action. So even listening to the CDs and the workbooks and pretending you're actually in a classroom, right? There's action. And was there a teacher on the other end taking tests? And how'd that work?
In that moment there, you're your own teacher, and you have to hold yourself accountable. And I remember when I spoke with one of the coaches, I said, well, what's the difference between me doing it myself or you doing it? He goes, well, I'll hold you accountable. I said, how are you going to hold me accountable? He said, well, if you don't show up for our meetings or if you don't do the work, I'm going to make you cut me a check for $1,000. I said, that sounds great, but I don't have $1,000, so it would be meaningless. So the accountability really does fall on you, because it doesn't matter if someone says, well, if you don't show up, I'm going to charge you $1,000. Go for it, dude. I got no money. So you really have to be self-accountable in those moments, and you have to have a desire to grow. When I talk about the fixed mindset and the growth mindset, everybody can shift from the fixed mindset. I was in it. Anybody can shift. But the key to that is that they have to have the desire. They have to have the reason why. And that's why in my workshops, my coaching, and the work that I do, we try to uncover the reason first. What's your why? What's your purpose? Because if you know what you're working or striving towards, then you have a reason to work through those challenging days. Then you have a reason to, when the world is collapsing on you, to say, you know what, I'm still going to get up. I'm still going to push forward.
Right. And still push forward, and making even small incremental baby step forward to say, this is a new thing I learned today. I can apply this tomorrow. And that's sort of not just a discipline, but the learning, and it feeds on itself. The more you learn, the more you do, the more you want to learn and more to do. And that kind of moves that stuff forward. Yeah. Angel Mary, do you do a similar kind of a story back when you're going from the corporate world to healthcare and now on your own?
I would say one of the most important pieces about making that decision to step out on your own is whether or not you, just like Michael was talking about, whether or not you're able to take yourself out of your own head when you have a problem. Sometimes we get really deep in the weeds with things and we can't see the big picture. As an entrepreneur, we have to be able to really see all the different moving pieces and not let anything fall. And if you're not really able to commit to yourself and promise yourself and really count on yourself to be able to do that, you may end up in a failing business on your own. And that's why before you take that big step forward, for me, I had to do a self-assessment. I had to really make a decision. Do I want to make a choice on walking away from something that's very stable? A paycheck is a very stable thing. Moving into your own business, it means that you're taking a lot of risk on. When you take that level of risk, you have to really just like many of us, we have families, we have kids, we have spouses, we have people that we have to actually consult with, make sure that they're on board with us as well. And then when we make that decision, I know a lot of people say you got to do what you're passionate about, but I want to point out this one piece. If you're highly talented in something, that actually goes further than passion, because you could be passionate, but if you don't have the skill set and it's not working for you, it's not the same as something that comes truly easy for you. So like Michael and Howie, where you guys figured out that you had a skill set, I was able to figure out rather quickly in the years that I was working in my career that I was able to take really maybe disgruntled employees or disengaged employees and pull them in, bring them back into the fold, bring them back into the community of the team. And I'm currently the president of our Toastmasters Club. I apply the same principles into our club the same way. That's why we've been doing activities outside. We're trying to build real relationships. Once you build a real relationship with somebody in your workplace, it's going to be so much easier to pick up the phone and call them and ask for that report, right? We all know what that feels like, that intense. And there's so much stress that the new generation coming in has with even telephones. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but the next generation coming in, they really dislike making telephone calls. And that's a generational divide that's happening, right? So these kinds of communication skills, that's really what I've been really focusing on. And as I talk to more and more people, I'm finding that this like divide that's happening between generations and between even employees. I think all of us, when we're working in our respective areas, we're coming across individuals who are having difficulties with adjustments, right? So this whole thing about entrepreneurship is you're consistently in change all the time. No 2 days are different. Wouldn't you say so, Howie? No 2 days are different for you, right? Right. So we have to be able to make that actual transformation to be able to adapt to these major changes happening at the same time as taking on risks. So I love what Michael said when he was talking about being fired for the last time. I love that phrase you said. You made a conscious decision in your mind. You're like, you know what? This is it. What is going on? I got to figure out what's happening with me. If everybody was like Michael and they were taking that extra step to scrutinize and make a conscious choice and understanding why am I making these decisions? Why am I going in this direction? We would be all in a very different place right now.
That's one of the things that I love that you're saying that, Angel, because I think one of the things for myself and my clients is becoming aware that there is that I'm even able to make a decision, Sometimes it's forced on us. Like in my case, it was forced on me when my husband passed away. And when I woke up from my widow's fog and realized that I had no idea of who I was outside of all the labels that I had put on myself of being a daughter and a mother and then a divorced failure and then a successful wife again, and, and then a grandmother and a business owner. And now I'm a widow.
Right.
Who's Barbara in all of that?
And so much, Barbara, like so much of what you're saying is what's true for all of us. And that's why so much of us have so many problems. If like you get laid off from a company you work for so many years, your identity has been tied to that one place.
Right.
And what we all have to remember is we're much more than our positions, our companies, our jobs. There's so much more dynamic depth to us. And that's really what I try to pull out of people when we're meeting and working workshops together.
Well, and that's why I now work with late career business professionals who are facing retirement, maybe 5 years, 10 years, even 15 years down the road, but their job, or that they don't know who they are beyond their job. Which is one of the reasons why Sherry and I started this show. We said, you know what? This is such a needed subject. And I truly believe it's one of the subjects that so many people are not talking about. Identity. Who am I? And like when you don't have your title and you don't have your job description, am I still going to be relevant? Am I still going to make a difference? Am I still going to be important? And so many people they don't know.
Yeah.
And that's where all of us come in.
Well, the answer is yes, right? You are still important no matter what labels come off of you.
Exactly.
I'd love to chime in on that because so often many of us who are in these rooms with these different people who are asking these questions, the work-life balance comes up. And this was part of the invite here was to discuss work-life balance. And to your point, it's like, if you don't know who you are and you're letting the job define you, then you're living this dual life. You're living this dual personality. And if you are unaware as to who the two people that you are, or they're different, then of course you're seeing this imbalance. Of course this is happening. Of course one is getting more attention than the other. Of course you're feeling burnt out here and not there, or burnt out here and not there, or all together. So a suggestion I have for everybody watching and listening here is the first thing to really uncover, and this is the work that we do in personal development, is to figure out who we are, as you said, Barbara, in that, right, what's your personal mission statement?
Right.
What are your values? Because we know that in business, and I've interviewed so many CEOs on this question of how do you make hard decisions? How do you make hard decisions? How do you make hard decisions? And every single one of them come back with, we rely on the values of the organization. What are the values? And those drive our decision. Well, the same goes with ourselves.
Right.
So we need to identify what's our personal mission statement. What are our personal values? And those are going to help us in the decision making as we move through life, whether it's with being a widow, whether it's being an entrepreneur, or moving into a corporate executive status, is that when we know who we are, and those values are driving our decisions, now we bring that into the workplace. Now we bring that into our personal spaces, our friendship spaces, our networking spaces. And those values are what we stand by. And those values inform our decisions. And that's when we're living in congruency. And that's when the person who we are is now deciding, is this the right job for me? Is this the right entrepreneurial decision for me? Is this the right networking group for me? Is this the right friend for me? Our personal values, our personal mission statement defines all of that for us, to where if it is, then it's aligned. And if it's aligned, that's where the burnout, well, burnout's different, but that's where that stress, that anxiety, and that work-life balance is no longer such a trouble. There's always going to be a balance. There's always going to be a balancing act. I deal with it all the time. I had to cancel things for family vacation and vice versa. There's always going to be a balancing act, but it's much different when you're in congruence. It's much different when your personal values are driving those decisions.
And that makes total sense. And Howie, I see the wheels turning there. So what's going on in your mind in relation to what Michael's saying there?
We also talk about what's your personal values and your position in the world and how you see yourself, but it also goes to how other people see you and how you express yourself in a variety of different roles. When we talk about how you do anything is how you do everything, even if it's not true. But the reality is it really is true most of the time. And so I have been certainly business. I worked at a corporate job for a long time. I had 2 businesses, and also was a scout leader for my kids. We did a lot of camping, family vacations. Who's going to Maine this summer? I'm going to Maine this summer also. So it'll be a lot of fun. And so there's a lot of different moving parts. And when I'm in different groups or conversations in whatever the context is, a lot of times the conversation will come up. Oh, you've been cycling recently. You do this, that, all the things that people know me in the world around me and the things we talk about. And that comes up. And I think that's a great way to be more balanced in the work-life balance when other people know I'm more than just the guy who helps people with their finances.
That makes a lot of sense. And Howie, we have to talk because I'm heading to Maine as well this summer. So
okay,
let's chat in terms of that. But when we look at all these things that happen to us, for instance, I told you the element about waking up and not knowing where I was, that caused me to look at my life and go, okay, you've obviously burned out. Now you see it. And what changes are you going to make? And those changes don't always come easily. I've had my own business for 44 years. I'm not saying that out loud. but
Celebrate that, Jerry. Celebrate that.
That's what I said.
Oh, dear. But it made me look at my business and go, what do I need to change in my business so that I am not burning out? Because that was the 3rd time I burnt out. Let's look at these things and start assessing what it is that's causing the burnout. And going back to what Michael said, and partly to what you said, Angel, it's that element about we have to look at us, because it's not other people putting those pressures on us. It's us putting the pressures on. That's what makes the difference. So looking at this then, what are the things that we want to leave our audience with today to enable them? Sorry, I haven't been speaking English for very long, obviously, right? What is it that's going to help those people who are listening to make that step for themselves? So, Howie, take it away.
Yeah, I look in the future. There was a movie, and I can't remember the name of it, where a guy had arranged his own funeral, and people would come to say nice things and do all that kind of stuff, just so he could get that recognition that he longed for his entire life. And it was one of those feel-good kind of movies. But maybe if you even look at yourself, just today, tomorrow, and next week, but a couple of years down the road, where do you want to leave? What do you want to leave behind? And
so your legacy.
A legacy, yeah. And what do you want people to remember about you? And you're thinking that sort of long-term thinking, that goes a long way to what you're going to do today.
And one of the stories that comes to mind for me was I was reading an article about the Nobel Peace Prize, and how he came to be starting that was his brother passed away and they accidentally put out his obituary. And he was known as he had invented dynamite and bombs and all of those things. And when he read it, he went, that's not what I want to be known for. I need to change. And he totally changed everything in his life.
Wow.
To now, that's why part of it was now we have the Nobel Peace Prize.
Very good.
Because that was for him. He was slapped in the face with, oh yeah, that's how people are going to write about me if I don't do something to change it.
Mm-hmm.
And I love this conversation. Absolutely. We have to see where we're at. Yeah. So.
Okay. Howie, go ahead.
I was going to say, Angel, what's your legacy? Where are you going in the next couple of years, or 10 years, 50 years?
Well,
you're a lot younger than me.
Oh, maybe 100 years. I don't know. Well, before I get into that, I just wanted to touch on what Sherry was talking about regarding how we overburden ourselves with stress and what we can take away. When I was working at at the very top, I had over 350 people reporting up to me. I was juggling so many things. I had middle managers reporting up too, and I had, I want to say, like over 250 emails on a daily basis coming to me. It was very hard for me to turn it off. It was extremely difficult at that pace to turn my brain off. And what happens is you feel like if you are not there, everything won't work. And you get into this sort of mental state where you just keep pushing, and you lose sleep, you lose rest, you start, your hygiene starts to go, things start to fall apart. So what I want to give your listeners and viewers here today as a tool is, just this device is a great, wonderful tool. However, this is also something that can interfere with your health and your well-being. So it's important learning how to turn this device off, and all of the digital technology that we have in our lives, having a shutdown time. That's like the number one thing I can say, because I am guilty of, even till today, even though I'm giving you this advice, I am guilty of sleeping next to this and rolling over at like 1 o'clock in the morning and typing myself an email because I found a great idea, because all my great ideas come in the middle of the night for some reason. But turn it off, right? And then give yourself some scheduled downtime.
Yes.
And the reason why I'm saying schedule it is because if we don't actually block out time in our calendar, we will find other people will add meetings, or we will add it right ourselves, and we will never have it. So that is my 2 key pieces of advice. Moving forward, just on legacy, my only legacy is I will be lucky if in 100 years from now, anyone even remembers who I am. I'd be lucky. So the only legacy that I want to leave is I want to leave people better than I found them. And if everybody operated the same way, we'd be living in such an amazing world. So that's really the key. It ties back into every single thing that I'm doing with the women who I'm doing leadership development with, and boosting up their entrepreneurial skills, and as well as the companies I go into, and I'm pushing and boosting up the leaders and employees there. The truth is, as individuals, we all are extremely special. We all have value. It doesn't matter what our labels are. No matter what, you have something wonderful to offer the world. Just remember that. And the legacy that I want to leave is, make the effort to connect with someone today. So do that before you go to rest for the rest of the day. So thank you.
Go to sleep without your phone next to you. That's the key.
Yes.
Well, Michael, what's your take on the whole thing?
Yeah, and same thing. I want to kind of also touch on that burnout conversation. As Toastmasters, and I recommend everybody who's watching this, listening to this, to check out Toastmasters. Our group meets virtually twice or 3 times a month sometimes, and also in person. So no matter where you are, you can definitely check it out. And the reason why I bring that up is because Toastmasters is more than just being able to speak and being able to speak clearly and project your voice and be able to prepare for a speech. It also teaches you to listen. And I think that this is huge for everyone here when we're thinking about burnout, is to listen. Now, in public speaking, we talk about listening as listening to the speaker, and everybody who's watching or listening to this right now is using their ears to listen. When we're talking about burnout, I'm saying listen to yourself.
Yeah.
So as a listener, we learn how to be quiet, how to pay attention to the other person speaking. And then as a listener in personal development, we can learn how to be quiet within ourselves and listen to what our body and our mind need. And so back to what Angel was just speaking about these different habits that we set for ourselves, blocking off time. We have to listen to ourselves to hear, I got 250 emails. I've just plowed through 215 of them. All right, at the last 30 or 50 of them, I need to take some time now and listen to my body and heal a little bit. Because we know that there's corporate executives listening and watching right now that are in that. And so we can't tell you just turn it off, right? But what we can do is exactly take the advice that Angel just said and say, block off that time. Listen to what your body and mind are telling you and shut it down for a little while. And so I move into productive habits. So creating productive habits that support your health. And so when Howie, you were asking me about going to the hotel and doing all that other stuff and that work and all that other stuff, that was a habit that I created. I created a productive habit of learning, of challenging myself, of stretching myself. And so for all of you listening and watching right now, in dealing with burnout, first listen to the signs. and then create productive habits that'll help you. And I have a few for you here. One of the habits that you can start creating in your daily life, in your daily routines, is to start meditating. And I know that this is woo-woo. I know that everybody is like, I don't know how to meditate. I can't share. Great. I get it. Let's remove the word meditate. And let's just go with silence for 2 to 5 minutes. I worked with a client recently, and I told him, I promised him, because he said, I don't have time. I said, I promise you, we're just going to breathe for 2 minutes together. 2 minutes. That's what we did. We got off after the 2 minutes. I said, how does it feel? And he said, I feel amazing. And so what we realize is that we don't have to do a half hour, an hour, a 6-hour meditation. We can just silence our minds for 2 to 5 minutes, which I believe every one of us can find. And that right there is going to be the reset button that you just might need. The next habit, of course, is exercise. How many of us feel that we don't have enough time for exercise, but yet we find ourselves sitting, staring at the ceiling for 20 minutes because we're too tired to move? Well, first of all, use that 20 minutes to meditate. So let's try to hack some habits, right? But if we can incorporate 15, 20 minutes, 3-4 times a week in our life, I'm sure you can find it. And it's going to change everything in your life, because it's not only physical in terms of your muscular health, it's also mental and in your chemical health. It's going to help relieve all of the stresses in your life. And now when we go back to burnout, what we want to make sure of is that we're listening to the signs and what's happening. And I want to touch on the last piece here that Sherry, you mentioned just a little while ago, in terms of, I have so many tasks, I have so much to do. And so let's listen to the signs. What's happening? I got 250 emails. Is there someone who can help me with that? How can I delegate this process to somebody on my team, or maybe to a VA to take in some of those emails that might simply just be, I'm not available till next week. That might simply just be, please send that to so-and-so department. That's not my department. How can we delegate certain little tasks to others to remove some stuff from our plate so that we can make the time to meditate, to be silent, to be peaceful for a moment, and to exercise? And then, of course, to spend time with our loved ones and our family. Because as we connect with those people, that's going to help us in terms of burnout. The personal connection, like Angel said, the relationships that we form and leaning on those people is what's going to help us throughout those burnouts.
Sounds great. I think I'm going to go out and walk when we're done here.
I did it this morning.
One of the things that I have done that I loved what Michael said, and just one of the things that I had to do for myself was I took the word exercise out of my vocabulary, but now I do voluntary movement.
Nice. Redefining it.
Redefining it. So like with me, when I've got a project that I'm doing, I set a timer for like 45 or 50 minutes. And it's just, all it does is like, oh, timer. Oh, Barbara, stand up, do a dance, whatever it is, whatever you like to do. Sometimes I put on Chubby Checker and do the twist. I'm going to just tell I'm age myself a little bit there. But, you know, whatever it is, it's just moving. So many people say, oh, I don't have time to exercise. Yeah, but you had time to walk down the stairs today. So, yeah, I loved that, Michael. Thank you. Yeah, that was great. But just, yeah, I've just changed the word from exercise to movement. And I've had several people have said, oh, gee, Barb, yeah, that really was an easier transition, because they don't exercise, they move.
Right.
Very true.
Very good. One of the, it's funny you mentioned that one of the head games when we're talking about people doing budgeting and helping with their finances, you know, the word budget is a lot like the word diet. It's just right, they're negative words. Right. But if instead of calling it diet, you call it, let's have an eating plan. Everybody likes to eat, right? And the same thing with finances. If you just, everybody hates the budget, but everybody likes to spend. So let's just create a spending plan. Let's just do that.
I like that, Howie. I'm going to make a spending plan.
Oh, I love it. Oh, that's a good one, Howie. That's tremendous.
My favorite takeaway.
So one of the things that I think of in terms of making sure that I have more balance is I have a gratitude aspect.
Yes.
Every day, what is it that I show gratitude for? And I usually do it twice a day, so that it reminds me in the morning of where I can go in the afternoon kind of thing mentally. And then just before I go to bed, it's the same thing. What happened today that I have gratitude for? It just puts the world in a different perspective. And because I'm conscious about who I am from a business perspective, as well as who I am from a family perspective and a community perspective, it also gives me that element about where do I want to spend my time? Because if I don't think about it, guess what I do? Work.
Right.
And it has to be a conscious thought for me to be able to do and incorporate those other things, because they're the ones that get the short shrift from me very, very easily. You bet. Oh, dear. So as we wrap things up here today, what is it that you found exciting for you? What was a benefit to you today? Howie, start off.
I think the benefit for me is always love having these kind of conversations. With all of you are good friends. We've talked before many times, and always like digging into the background. And I always learn something new from Michael and Angel too all the time.
Wonderful. Good show. Okay. Michael.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I mean, Howie's spend. I mean, I love that, Barbara, right? I like that you teed Howie up with your movement into spend. I love it. The redefinition of words is so huge. I do it all the time. And what one word means for somebody, it means something else for somebody else. So we're gonna see that all the time. And so my last piece that I'd like to leave everybody with is along the lines of everything we just spoke about when we're talking about work-life balance, living in congruency, harmony, all the different things Angel, Howie, Sherry, and Barbara brought up. What I walk away with today, and what I hope everybody walks away with, is that we all have an opportunity and a decision that we can make to design our lives. We all do, as everybody's listened to today. We've all had those moments. I got fired, Angel quit. We all have those moments where it's just like the world is starting over for me. And so we can make a decision as to allow somebody else to make that decision for us of the world is starting over for me, or we can start today. And we can say, today I take control of my life and I design it in a way that makes me happy. And so we go back to our personal mission statement, our personal values, and making decisions based off of that to design the outcomes that we choose to have. And I'll leave everybody with this in terms of it being one of the most powerful things I ever really read from Brene Brown. And that is setting boundaries. And when you set those boundaries, everything we just talked about is possible for you.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Michael.
Yeah, lots of thought there, Howie?
Yep. Angel, what are you thinking?
Well, I just want to touch quickly on what Sherry mentioned about gratitude earlier. I feel that I also follow a very similar strategy as you, in that I want to regularly recognize all of the wonderful things that I have in my life, and having that recognition regularly reminds me of the abundance I have, right? And that prevents me from wanting other things that maybe I don't really need. So with that, this conversation, I'm filled with a deep sense of gratitude. I think that what you guys are doing here, just talking about how important it is for us to be able to have a balance, it is critical. I have met so many women and men too, who have pushed themselves to a limit and they were unable to pull themselves back. And then they had to reassess and rebuild. Don't get yourself to that place, right? I love gratitude because it brings you back grounded to your present moment in time. And if we can always just have gratitude at the forefront, we're going to be better off in the long run. So I just want to thank you for that, Sherry. And I concur with a lot of what Michael just shared about how to move forward with value here. A lot of what we talked about as a group here, sharing with one another, not labeling each other, not really labeling ourselves, and having gratitude and respect for ourselves. If we respect ourselves and recognize the beauty that we bring forward into the world, we're going to be able to make a big change in people's lives.
Makes a huge difference, you bet. Yeah. Barbara, your turn.
I think one of the biggest things for me is that just surround yourself with like-minded people, because we all We all know what we think, but one of my favorite sayings is that you don't know what you don't know until someone else tells you something that you don't know. And I have said that to so many people and they've gone, "What?" And then it sinks in. Well, it's like, you're right, because our brain only knows what it already knows. Until you, as Michael says, unless you go deep and tap into the divine within us to hear those messages. But sometimes, we need to hear it from other people, because we cannot do life on our own. And that's why Sherry and I, when we first talked about this show, it was like, you know what? We need to do this, just for the reasons that we've already talked about, for what all of you have talked about. We need to know that we're not alone, that we're not alone in our feelings. We're not alone in our struggles. We're not alone in the, what's wrong with me that I can't do this? Because that's where we automatically go to.
And that's true.
One thing I do want to say, though, I put everybody's contact information on LinkedIn in the comments. Make sure if something you resonated with you today, reach out to whoever said it and just say, hey, you know what? I really liked what you said.
Yes, let's have a conversation.
And let's have a conversation. So yeah, absolutely.
Makes a big difference. The whole language element really resonated with me this morning, because we know that the brain doesn't pick up the negatives as quickly as it picks up the positives. And so when we're talking and saying, I can't, don't want, whatever it is that we're saying in our own heads as well as verbally, that's the thing that generally ends up coming. I don't smoke. Well, the brain's hearing I smoke. I don't put the candy in my mouth. No, the brain says put the candy in my mouth. It's that element that when we look at balancing ourselves, we need to be kind, as both Michael and Angel have said, we need to be kind to us, because if we can't be kind to us, then it's pretty hard for other people to be kind to us. And it makes a difference in terms usually of how we interact with other people as well. So thank you all. This whole conversation today is being so fabulous for those people who are listening. And Howie, you've brought wonderful guests with you. Thank you for everything that you did to make this happen. It's fabulous. And so for those of you who are listening, as Barbara suggested, yes, if you want to connect with any of our people here today, please take down that LinkedIn address and connect with them. And here's the thing. Go out and have a beautiful week. Remember, you are a beautiful person put on the face of this earth because you have a purpose here. And just remember to share that purpose with others. Sayonara, everybody. Have fun. Take care. Bye for now.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.